Hey everyone, welcome back to Daily Devotions. Pastor Steve here, walking with you in God's Word. Another day that He has made for the opportunity, and just what an honor it is to be able to get to know Him better and get to know Israel better. That's where in Exodus chapter 22. And if you think the goring bull from last video was pretty detailed, well, we're getting into more detail about how He's forming and shaping His community for His purposes to be able to actually make them as His chosen, to be able to go into this world and make a difference. Isn't it amazing how God does that? He actually takes us while we are still sinners. Christ died for us. He lavishes grace upon us, pursues us, takes us in. So what? That we'd feel good about ourselves, that we'd have a nice community. Those are great things. But no, it's to be a light to the nations, the people to see you. This is what He's saying to Israel, but it's also what He says to the church. When people see you, they see me. They see how you actually honor me. They see how you make decisions. They see how you live your life. They see how honorable and respectful you can be because of what God has done for you and how you live for God. And that's what He's just building in and amongst Israel at this time. Exodus chapter 22, beginning at verse 1. Let's read together. If a man steals an ox or a sheep and slaughters it or sells it, he must pay back 5 head of cattle for the ox and the 4 sheep for the sheep. Responsibility, right? If you're going to take this, steal this, execute this, then you're going to have to give back more. If a thief is caught breaking in and is struck so that he dies, the defender is not guilty of bloodshed, self-defense. But if it happens after sunrise, he is guilty of bloodshed. Because this, as the sun comes up, right, it's the known community. These are people of your community. This is the people that you've actually known, the people that you've walked with, people that you've talked with. This is known community. It says, a thief must certainly make restitution, but if he has nothing, he must be sold to pay for his theft. If the stolen animal is found alive in his possession, whether ox or donkey or sheep, he must pay back double. If a man grazes his livestock in a field or vineyard and lets them stray and they graze in another man's field, he must make restitution from the best of his own field or vineyard. If a fire breaks out and spreads into thorn bushes so that it burns shocks of grain or standing grain or the whole field, the one who started the fire must make restitution. If a man gives his neighbor silver or goods for safekeeping and they are stolen from the neighbor's house, the thief, if he is caught, must pay back double. If the thief is not found, the owner of the house must appear before the judges to determine whether he has laid his hands on the other man's property. In all cases of illegal possession of ox, a donkey, a sheep, a garment, or any other lost property about which somebody says, "This is mine," both parties are to bring their cases before the judges. The one whom the judges declare guilty must pay back double to his neighbor. He's laying the foundations of this is how you operate in this community. It is about honor, it's about respect, but it's also about responsibility. Responsibility for the people around you. Right? You're supposed to lift up your neighbor rather than take from them. This is what is spoken to in God's community. Verse 10, if a man gives a donkey, an ox, a sheep, or any other animal to his neighbor for safekeeping, and it dies or is injured or is taken away while no one is looking, the issue between them will be settled by the taking of an oath before the Lord that the neighbor did not lay hands on the other person's property. The owner is to accept this, and no restitution is required. But if the animal was stolen from the neighbor, he must make restitution to the owner. If it was torn to pieces by a wild animal, he shall bring in the remains as evidence, and he will not be required to pay for the torn animal. If a man borrows an animal from his neighbor, and it is injured or dies while the owner is not present, he must make restitution. But if the owner is with the animal, the borrower will not have to pay. If the animal was hired, the money paid for the hire covers the loss. A lot to talk about animals, but this is the reality. This is their property. This is why we talk about homes or cars or having insurance and being able to have, liquidation of your funds. This is their property. This is their money. This is their way of living. It's with the animals. That was their way of living. So within that, it goes now into a different part of responsibility. Not so much about the animals. We got those details down, right? Responsibility if you take care of an animal, take care of the animal, like kind of take it into your house, right? That then it's yours, but if it's not, meaning like treat it as it's yours, and if something happens, then you know that that's your responsibility. But here's where it comes into social responsibilities. It's not just about property. It's not just about material anymore. It's about us. It's about ourselves. How do we manage? How do we walk responsibly of ourselves with our bodies, with our neighbors? It says this: if a man seduces a virgin who is not pledged to be married and sleeps with her, he must pay the bride price, and she shall be his wife. If her father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he must still pay the bride price for virgins. Do not allow a sorceress to live. Anyone who has sexual relations with an animal must be put to death. Whoever sacrifices to any god other than the Lord must be destroyed. There is no room for immorality in and amongst the community of God. There's no room for it. As it says here, it's just cut off. Because if it's just left inside the community, it has an effect. It's going to distract and divert people away from actually worshiping God